In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to transform a selection, and we'll use that to replicate a popular technique amongst photographers for displaying a photo and drawing the viewer's eye to the area they want, but still retain the context of the image. And this technique was really popular a few years ago amongst wedding photographers and family photographers. I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool, and in the options bar, I'm going to choose fixed ratio, and I'm going to set it to 6 width and 4 height. So a normal 6x4 photo, and I'm going to just drag to get an area that I want. I'm going to focus in on this little boy, and you can use your arrow keys on the keyboard to nudge your selection. I'm going to bring him over just a little bit, kind of using that popular rule of thirds amongst photographers, so he's not in the exact center of the photo. And I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. Now I want to rotate this. If I were to go to the Edit menu and choose Transform Rotate, watch what happens. It rotates the contents, and that's not what I want. I want to rotate just the selection. So I'm going to do Control Z to undo that. Instead, and I'll press the Enter key to accept the transformation back where it was. Instead, I'm going to go to the Select menu, and there is a Transform Selection about 2/3 of the way down. And with that, I can grab the handles and resize it. If I go outside the handles, you notice I get a little curved arrow, and I can rotate this. So I'm going to rotate my selection. It's about where I want it. And I'm going to press the Enter key to accept that transformation. Now I haven't done anything to the image yet. I forgot to duplicate my background, so I'm not destroying anything. So I'm just going to right-click on the background layer and choose Duplicate Layer. Have my background copy. What I want to do is add a border around this on the inside. So we're going to go to the Edit menu and choose Stroke. And I want a white color. I'm going to make it width of 18 pixels. Now the width will vary depending on how large your image is, what you really want to portray here. So I think white and 18 pixels should be pretty good based on the size of this image, which is fairly large. That gives me a nice little border there. If I want more or less, I could simply undo. So maybe I want that to be 20. So I can go to the Edit menu again, choose Stroke one more time, and this time let's make it 21. I want a little bit larger. Now if you choose Center and Outside, it's going to give you curved corners. That's not what I want. I want straight corners, so it's going to basically push it up from the inside into the corners of my selection. I like that. Now we're going to go to the Select menu and choose Inverse. By choosing Inverse, I'm getting everything else that wasn't selected is now selected, and what was selected is unselected. So if you watch the marching ants, they're all the way on the outside, and they're at the border of my image that I want to focus in on. Now there's lots of things we can do here. One thing is we could have transferred this focal point onto another layer, and that'd probably be a good idea. We're going to focus more on layers next week, so I'm not going to focus too much on layers in this unit. But I want to show you things that you can do to the area on the outside with some adjustments. And these are the various techniques that can be employed, and you get really different results depending on what you want to do and what your intent is. So one thing we could do is go to the image layer and choose Adjustments and make this black and white. And we could do all kinds of adjustments here in terms of the different hues till we get the impact that we want. That's one thing we could do. I'm going to click Cancel. There's lots of things we could do under Hue and Saturation. So I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. Now we could do a black and white here as well by taking the saturation all the way down. And then we could adjust the lightness a little bit if we wanted, get a little bit darker area. Maybe we want this to be kind of blown out, just really soft. Maybe we want it to be really dark. So we have lots of options there. Again, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to go back to Image, Adjustments, hue and saturation. I could colorize. And so I could take that area and basically give it a tint. And again, we can make that brighter. In this case, I probably want the tint to be a little bit lesser. And so it's drawing the viewer's eye to the little boy. That's where we want to focus on, but we still retain the context of his parents holding his hands. I'm going to click cancel. There's lots of things we could do under the filter menu. We're going to go filter, blur. I can do a Gaussian blur and take everything else out of focus, again, giving the focus on that little boy. We could also go to the filter menu, blur, and do something like a motion blur or a radial blur. Let's do a motion blur, just so you can see the impact of that. So it looks like he's standing still, the parents are in motion. Let's do another blur. This time we'll do a radial blur. We can spin the blur, or we can do a zoom. I like to do the zoom. You have options here of quality, draft, good, and best. I'm not sure why you wouldn't choose best. You can change the amount. So I'm going to go up to about 25. Let's see what that does. So again, we're focusing on that little boy. Everything else is kind of being blurred out in a radial blur. Once again, I'm going to undo that. And so you can play around with these different filters. We can do a ripple. Now I'm going to move this so you can see the outside area here as far as the impact, but we could change the amount. So this kind of looks like we're maybe looking through frosted glass. Again, it all depends on what it is that you want to attain. Now in this case, we can see the white edge is kind of getting rippled as well. So here's a good example where we want to probably put that little boy on his own layer, and then we're working on everything behind him. So just to demonstrate that, I'm going to do the ripple. I'm going to go back to the select and choose inverse again. So I'm back to the little boy in the border. And to make that on his own layer, we can just go to the layer menu, choose new, and layer via copy. Now he's on his own layer. And so back to the background, I can turn that layer off. And I have the white border here on this layer. I really don't want that anymore. I'm just going to delete that layer, and I'm going to duplicate my background again. So right click, duplicate layer. Now I've got a fresh background without the little boy and the white frame that's on a separate layer. But now I can affect this whole layer and do all kinds of stuff with it and not worry about affecting the frame in any way. I'm going to make sure I'm on my background layer, and let's do distort. How about wave? Again, you can play with the different settings here. I want to scale this down. And that really distorts the background, kind of lose the context. So it all depends on what you want to achieve and what your artistic viewpoint is, and maybe what your client wants. I'm going to undo the wave. Go back to image adjustments. Let's go to brightness and contrast. And again, we can do some things here as far as darkening that area. And maybe reducing the contrast here. So all sorts of things you can do to that background to get this different effects, but using the same techniques. Very simple selection and then transforming the selection. If you'd like to see more videos in the Photoshop Practicum playlist, click the title at the bottom. If you'd like to be alerted to new videos, please click my photo in the top right to subscribe to the channel.